Okay. Welcome to my Trigun Stampede retrospective. I think it's been about a month since I finished the show, which is crazy because it just doesn't feel like it's been that long. Probably for like the whole first week after I finished episode 12, I was just too stunned to speak. It's in my head and it's making me crazy. But I'm normal now and I can talk about it. I tried to write a script for this video and I think I just hate reading and writing scripts. So we're gonna try and just do this off the cuff. I have a few things that I wanted to talk about and hopefully I can make them work. Episode 12, man, Vash and Nai's fight. It's just so tragic. They're just yelling at each other. The same old things that they've been saying for 150 years. And they're just screaming past each other. I think they both know that their worldviews are just incompatible and that they won't really be able to get through to the other. I think that it was important for Vash specifically to try, even though he knew that it was a hopeless cause, that Nai would never see things the way that he sees them. He still had to try. We're not shown in the show that they have ever really interacted in between the arm incident and Junora Rock. So he had to talk to Nai again. And they're just going back and forth about the nature of humanity and power and vengeance. But at the heart of it, they're just screaming at each other like, can't you see? I'm trying to love you. Can't you see that? Is there anything I could do that would get you to love me back in the way that I need to be loved? And they just can't get through to each other. It really took me by surprise how much of Nai's pain I felt. I'm not really a sympathy for the villain type of person. So it's a very strange experience to, I don't know if relate to is the right term, but just to understand so deeply, like where Nai is coming from. And I think a lot of that is helped by, I think I talked about this a little bit too, but I feel like the writers never really took the easy route when writing Vash and Nai's relationship. Like I said in episode 11, I think, it would have been really easy to just write a trite story where Vash was the favorite, Nai was jealous, and so this is why he acts the way that he does. But that's not the case. Like, Rem never had a favorite. It would have been very easy to write Nai cutting off Vash's arm as something vengeful, malicious, and hateful, but he did it to save Vash. And it would have been easier to just write a relationship where Nai just completely hates his brother and doesn't have any love for him left, but they didn't do that. I think Nai's desperation really comes across so well. His desperation to love and be loved by his brother. It would have been easier to write a scenario where Vash ultimately decides, you know what, everyone else is right. I do need to try to kill Nai. I do need to compromise my morals this one time and kill Nai. It would make for a cleaner story. It would, in some ways, make Vash easier to root for. Because everyone else can see Nai's insane, there's no saving him, but Vash isn't willing to give up on that. And I think that turns a lot of people away, both in the story and outside of the story. I think it's hard for people to align strongly with Vash when he is borderline delusional about his brother. Personally, for me, I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, so it's just an impasse of incompatible love. During their whole fight, neither of them is making a particularly good argument for their own side, but their ideologies are secondary. Like, that's not what this is really about. It's really just about the two of them and how they want so badly to be able to reconcile with each other, but they can't. And so Nai pulls a pro gamer move and just takes himself out. Like, Nai won that, even though Vash was the survivor. Nai was the victor. Yeah, it's crazy. This weekend, I just rewatched the first 4 episodes with my sister, and there are a handful of things, nothing that makes me go like, oh, I can't believe I missed that, or oh, that completely changes the context, but there's just a few things in every episode that I'm like, I see. Episode 2, the way that Vash talks about still wanting to save the village that betrayed him. He doesn't mind that they betrayed him. He understands, but they were kind to him, and so he wants to be kind to them in return. I think the way that he treats Wolfwood mirrors that, everything that he said in that episode. Then in episode 3, when E.G. Bummer is like, I've been reborn and given a new name thanks to someone, which obviously is Nai. Nai's need to, like, change Vash and, like, make him his little project and turn him into the thing that he wants. Those themes were already there. Like, Nye has already done that to other people and is going to continue to try and do that with Vash. In episode 4, Wolfwood's like, man, I envy kids for being so light on their feet. And normally that's just a one-off sentence, but I'm like, this man was a little kid not that long ago. And he had his childhood taken away from him. And he misses that. That line really isn't that deep. But if you already know, then it's sad. So I think what I'm going to do now is just go through the comments, because I haven't answered any of the episode 12 comments since I was on vacation. Octylish said, I was wondering what you would be hoping for or expecting for season 2, or rather part 2 of Tri-Stamp. Although it closely follows the events of Trimax, or so I've heard, it's basically remixed and most of the fandom is unsure on where they'll be taking the series, but still very excited. And also, is there anything you didn't like from Tri-Stamp? This might be a weird answer, but I'm really interested to see what they do with the food conversation. Because one thing about Vash, in this, he is eating. He is constantly eating, which is quite different from Stampede Vash. I think that it makes so much sense for him to have disordered eating habits. So I'm interested to see where they take that in a further adaptation. Stampede really does just feel like a slightly to the left version of a lot of the stuff that's happening in the manga. I made it through about 3 chapters and it's all very familiar. I didn't realize that Stampede was going to be a direct prequel to the manga. Like, you open up the manga and on the very first page, 3rd City, July, 11 hours after destruction. I didn't realize it was going to tie in immediately like that, which is cool. But then so far in the chapters that I've read, everything that I've read has happened in Stampede, but there's just slight variations on the stuff that happen. Like, it's Roberto instead of Millie. The Nebraskas are there. Rosa is there, but not really as a character. She's just like kind of there on the side. So I guess I'm just hoping that they take like whatever comes next and adapt it in a way that is still faithful to the manga, but carries on thematically from the show. I've heard that Trimax is just awful. Not awful, like bad, but that it's emotionally puts you through the ringer. So I hope that we get all of that and more in later seasons. Anything that I didn't like from Tri-Stamp? You know, as I was rewatching, it's peculiar to me how dissonant the tone is between the first 2 episodes and then the last 10. There's just such a difference between the silliness of the first 2 episodes and then the progressive darkening of the next 10. I think content-wise, there wasn't really anything that I didn't like. I just feel like the first part of the show had some tone and pacing problems. But I think if a show is going to have problems, that's one of the best problems to have, because if everything else, like the art and the voice acting and the characters, everything else can absolutely carry. And it's really easy to kind of just look past some weird tone or weird pacing. The other thing that I didn't like from Tri-Stamp is that I didn't really feel like Meryl was a main character at all. She does some important things. She gets a couple cool character moments, but I never really felt like we as the audience got to truly connect with her. And I don't know if that's an issue on my part. Famously and historically, I pretty much only relate to male characters, which I'm not going to unpack that. But in reading the first few chapters of Trimax, well, not Trimax, the manga, Meryl seems like a grown woman. She seems like she knows who she is, what she's doing. Maybe they'll just give her a big confidence boost in season 2, and she'll seem more like a real, fleshed out character. I mean, credit where credit's due. In episodes 11 and 12, she really pulled through. She was so brave, and she helped get Vash back into himself. But as soon as that was done, it's like, she's gone. And so it's probably intentional in Tri-Stamp that she's not very confident or capable, because she's going to be those things in the future. With a lot of the other characters, either I connected with them really well at the beginning, or there was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, I get you now. I feel for you, or I understand, or this compels me. I never really got that with Meryl, so I'm hoping that she gets more of a chance to shine. Okay, Ren Edits said, what surprised you the most in the series? Aside from Nye, because I talked about Nye ad nauseum already, I'm gonna say I did not expect to love Wolfwood as much as I love Wolfwood. I knew from the very beginning that I would love Vash. He was the kind of character going into it, I was like, okay, this is exactly the type of character that I love to see. So I was like fully prepared to just adore him. And I did. I knew nothing about Wolfwood other than Jesus gun. I was so surprised at how much I love dissecting him. Okay, that's probably in poor taste given that he was a bit of a lab rat, but he's just so fun to analyze. In my heart, I am much more of a Wolfwood than I am a Vash. I think in beliefs and principles, I am similar to Vash, but I think in just personality and the way that I am much more of a Wolfwood. So it's very hard sometimes to adhere to the principles that I have because my natural tendency is in the other direction. So he's very fun to analyze because a lot of the traits that he displays outwardly are masks for his real feelings, for other facets of himself. And so it's really fun to kind of pick that apart and look in and see where is the real Wolfwood. I don't want to see the Punisher. I want to see Nicholas Wolfwood. The more I think about him, the more he might be my favorite character in this show. The more I think about Wolfwood, the sadder I get. The more I'm certain that he's intended to still be very, very young. Not like 12, but I don't know, 19 at the oldest to me. I'm constantly clowning on his fit, but I think that his clothes just aren't made for him. They don't fit right, so he just wears whatever. And he's not really used to being in the body that he's in. And there's something really sad about the lollipops. Maybe he just never got to eat candy when he was younger. Or maybe his blood sugar crashes from taking those meds and you have to have something sweet to eat or you'll pass out. He just makes me so sad. I'm just rooting for him. I can see into him that he doesn't really want things to have to be this way. So I'm really, really rooting for him. Gosh, I'm gonna butcher this. Lumsalum8863 asked if I ship Vash and Wolfwood. No, I've never really enjoyed shipping anything in the media that I watch. It's very rare that I care about that sort of thing. And like I said earlier, in Tristamp, Wolfwood reads very, very young to me. So yeah, that's not really a realm that I want to dip my toes into. Okay, a couple questions about my jacket. I actually just thrifted it. It was like 20 bucks. And it's merino wool, so I feel bad for like chopping it up and sewing patches to it, but yeah, here's my coat. I definitely did not make it. I can sew, but I don't have that kind of skill. I bought the patches off of someone on Etsy. Andrea Lair said... So, okay, speculation on the nature of plants in general and the big question of why the twins were born. I think the twins were born for the reason that anyone is born. Because they were. As cute as I think Rem's idea was that like maybe they were angels, maybe they were heaven sent. I don't know if there's some specific grand reason why they were born. Like why were any of us born? Because we were just born. But I don't necessarily think that there has to be a deeper reason behind it. I agree with your statement that Conrad was not correct with his theory of, how do I say this? His theory for the difference between plants and independents is that independents have a soul and plants don't. I don't see any reason why that theory should hold water. I think that's just his own speculation. I'm not taking that as canon either. I think it's interesting, but it's perhaps too existential of a question. Unless the show answers that question within itself and says that yes, that's the definitive reason, it's too philosophical of a question because you can't even prove that humans have souls. I believe that they do, but you can't look at a human and look at a plant and be like, this thing has a soul and this thing doesn't, when they're both sentient beings. I'm fine with just letting it be ambiguous. And like, yeah, sometimes independents are born and they look like people, but they're actually plants. And then also the theme of autonomy. Yes, I did catch on to, in a lot of different situations, it's not just Nye and the way that his final plan is assault coded. It's also everything that the Doctor does. Everything that the Doctor has created is a human rights violation. And you have Rollo's and Nico's autonomy being violated as they're turned into human experiments and forced to grow up. And all of the Doctor's other various creations are all violations of agency and autonomy, especially with children. The plants are almost a slavery allegory. That's a huge violation of autonomy. Even Blue Summers and his bloodbending technique, he is able to control someone against their will, which is really scary. And so, yeah, I did pick up on a lot of that. It's not lost on me that all of the plants are feminine appearing, and that Vash himself is actually quite feminine also. So I absolutely think that there's commentary there about the exploitation of women, the exploitation of children, the exploitation of those deemed not human enough. Okay, I think that's it in terms of questions. After this video, I don't know how well I'll be able to keep up with weekly uploads because I don't know how quickly I will be able to go through the manga. I'm trying to source my manga as ethically as possible, but it's very hard to do that when copies are out of print and I don't want to pay an arm and a leg to purchase them secondhand, and my library doesn't have every volume. So I've got the first few, but there's no guarantee that I'd be able to acquire and read and put out a video on a new volume of the manga every single week. I think I might intersperse episodes of 1998 Trigun along with my manga read-through if there's a big delay in me acquiring the manga. But I also don't want to pigeonhole myself into making just Trigun videos. I would love to make some video essays about other media and stuff, but as today has proven, I have a very hard time with scripts. We'll see where that goes. Eventually, when I do finish the cosplay, I will make a video about it, but that might not be for a while because it's slow going. But I think that wraps up the retrospective, and I'll see you guys hopefully next week for the beginning of my manga review. As I was struggling to edit episode 12, because I had an hour and 5 minutes of footage and I needed to get it down to about 20 minutes. It was giving me such a hard time. I was like, I'm not proud of this. I feel like I didn't say anything valuable. One of my friends asked me, which episodes are you proud of? And I said 4 and 7. And she said, and why do you think that? I thought about it for a second and I was like, because they had wolfwood in them. Because those are like the wolfwood episodes. So somehow I am just able to effusively talk about this man for hours.